Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Amanda Fest podcast. My name is Amanda, and our mission is simple. It's to inspire and empower you to take aligned action towards your dream life, whatever that might look like for you. Today, we have another solo vlog where I share the latest updates, downloads, and wisdom gained from the last 2 weeks of my wild life, as I am the living embodiment of somebody on the path of creating their dream life and living my dream life in the process. But as we've done with every episode, before we dive into this one, let's take a moment to ground down, arrive in the here and now, and just center. So if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close down your eyes. I like to put a hand on my heart and one on my belly. And just start tuning into your internal world, breathing in through your nose, and out through your mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Taking this as an opportunity to slow down, to ground down, to tune in to what's alive and true for you. And I want you to start imagining on the inhale, you're breathing in an intention, something you want more of, you'd like to be filled up with, and really imagine your whole body filling with this intention on that inhale. And with the exhale, you're releasing anything that is no longer in alignment with that intention. Really imagining a release, a letting go. So a couple breaths like that, in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Use this last one to really shake it out, release, let go, anything that no longer serves you, in through the nose, and out through the mouth. Welcome. Welcome to your bodies, welcome to Amanda Fest, and welcome to today's episode. So as I do with all of these solo vlogs, someone asked me what my process is for these episodes. And they were like, how do you just sit there and talk to yourself for an hour? And I was like, great question, glad you asked. So what I typically do, for those who are curious, is I love taking pictures and videos. I always have. That's just been a thing that I've done forever. And what it allows me to do is remember what the fuck has happened. So I go back and look at when was the last date that I released my last podcast. And I work backwards from that. And I look at my camera roll and try to figure out, okay, what have I done since then? And through the photos, it allows me to, one, remember events, right? Remember where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. And then two, really start to remember, like, what lessons and wisdom and downloads have I received in the last few weeks? Because let me fucking tell you, the universe has been universing as I've been traveling and moving around and meeting new people and putting myself in new environments and all of these things. I'm just on a hyper speed with the personal growth. If my goal and my mission is to grow, is to expand, is to become the best, highest version of myself, I'm constantly looking at all experiences as opportunities and portals for growth. So let's dive into it. When I was in Atlanta, I was staying with a friend of mine who's also on the content creation journey. And he has started this bi-weekly series. And I know I've heard from many people, like, this is something that would be good to do. Obviously, the podcast is great, and I love having the podcast, but not everybody watches the podcast. And so I've been trying to think about ways in which to share this wisdom that I'm gaining on a weekly, daily, moment-to-moment basis. I've been looking for ways in which to share this in a shorter form version. And I came up with a concept for a weekly series called The Beat Drop, where basically this is an opportunity for me to tell a little story about something that might have happened that week or happened in the last little bit, and then to extract the wisdom from that story and share it in a short form content. So if you follow me on social media, please engage with those videos. I'm still kind of figuring out the flow and figuring out best practices, but the more that my immediate circle engages with what I'm doing, the more that I'm able to have a wider and broader impact. I don't know how many of you know how the algorithms work, but essentially the way that it has been explained to me is that when you create something, the algorithm will initially show it to your inner circle, and then based off of how engaged your inner circle is, it'll start showing it to a wider audience. So when you see your friends that post things and you love your friends and you believe in what they're posting, you have no idea how much liking, commenting, sharing, engaging, saving, whatever you feel called to do, it is free to do, and it is such a supportive way to help your friends. And I know that it means a lot for me, and I always do my best for all of my friends that are creating content to support them in any way that I can. So just throwing that out there, letting you guys know that that is a thing. My first one did pretty well, and I'll tell you guys the long form story about that one. I was talking about conversation. So I had my little sister's graduation party. I told you that was happening. That's what I actually came back down here to South Florida for. My little sister just graduated law school. Very smart. She's been home studying for the bar, so it's been fun being home this last week and a half to connect with her before I launch off to my next location. So we had about 70 plus people at my parents' house for this graduation. It was a mix of all ages. We had boomers, we had millennials, we had Gen Z. But basically, what I noticed was, especially the boomers, love to ask the same questions. Hi, how are you? What are you doing for work? Where are you living? All of these super draining questions. I recognized I was having the same exact conversation over and over and over again, and I was feeling so exhausted and annoyed. And I know that everybody who was asking these questions meant well, but it really got me thinking about why sometimes we dread going to social experiences, because we're like, oh, I really don't want to have to go and repeat myself on loop over and over and over again. So many times throughout this party, I kept having to hide. I needed to go somewhere to recharge, to regroup, so that I could go back and engage again. So my best friend from New York was also here, and she recently got married and bought a house and is doing super, super, super well. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? These questions are annoying. Whether you're doing really well or you're not doing really well, the last thing I want to do is be repeating how I'm doing over and over and over again to people that, not that they don't matter, but it doesn't matter to share these things with these people. It's not fun. It's not exciting. It's not engaging. It's just exhausting. And so I did my first beat drop episode talking about this, because at one point, me and my friend, we went in the corner and we were talking about this, and we're like, what is it about these types of events and these types of social interactions that make you feel so exhausted? These questions are just fucking, ugh. And it made me think back to when I went to Burning Man for the first time. I remember I met someone at a party and I was like, hey, what's your name? What do you do? And they were like, why are you asking me that? And I was like, I never even thought about why I asked that. It's just like an autopilot question. I thought when you meet someone, that's what you say. Hi, what's your name? What do you do? And what I recognized was this was conditioning specifically from my time in Hollywood, where we were trained, literally trained, to network, and the networking was like, what's your name, what do you do, whose desk are you on? And essentially what we were doing when we went out was trying to figure out is, who do you work for, and are you worth my time in terms of a connection? It was just super, super, super transactional. And this person at Burning Man was like, when you ask somebody, what do you do, like as the first question out of your mouth, you're not just asking what do they do for work. What you're essentially doing subconsciously is sizing them up. You're trying to figure out, how much money do you make, what's your zip code, how big is your house? You know, all of these things that are a little bit more materialistic and not really indicative of who a person is and what they're passionate about. And so when they asked me, why do you ask me that? I thought about it and I was like, well, I'm just trying to figure out, like, who are you? Like, what are you passionate about? And they were like, well, why don't you ask that? And I was like, damn, yeah, like, what are you passionate about? What are you excited about? What are you currently working on? These are all questions that maybe can spark deeper conversation. But then when I was having this conversation with my friend at the graduation party, we kind of took it a step further and we were like, all right, like, what are some other types of questions that are actually fun to be a part of, something that feels engaging, something that feels exciting, rather than just being on loop and repeating the same thing. Oh yeah, I just got married. I just got a house. I'm working here. I'm working there. Yeah, nice to meet you. Okay, great. Next. Boo, 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 boo. And so she was telling me that her and her husband were on a trip, and on the drive up, she randomly asked him, what is your favorite type of bread? And can you rank it in order and tell me why? And then they created this list, and then throughout the trip that they went on, it was this ongoing debate, and people loved to engage in it, and it was super fun and silly and random and interactive. And I was like, okay, these are some fun questions that you're going to get to know somebody based off of the question, but it's not actually about the question, it's about the intention behind the question, right? And so I made my whole beat drop episode about that. As I was at this party, I was just kind of psychoanalyzing the dynamics of events and connection and meeting people, and trying to just figure out like what is a go-to question that I can have in my back pocket, that it's a question that I'm curious to know about you, and it's a question that I would enjoy answering myself. I've always stuck with the like, what lights you up? What are you most excited about right now? What are you working on? Like those types of things. But I can also see from another perspective, if you're unclear as to what you're passionate about and you don't really have anything that lights you up right now, that question could feel challenging. So my invitation to you is, what is a question that you, one, enjoy learning about other people, and two, don't feel exhausted in responding to, that you're allowed to pick and choose and figure out how you want to respond to this so that you can respond in a way that feels exciting and engaging and not draining. So that was my takeaway from the graduation party. Obviously, seeing my sister with all of her friends and how many friends she has, she's just, I'm so proud of her, and I'm so excited for this next chapter of her life. I have been in the house with her on and off for the last like week and a half, and just watching her prep for the bar and how focused she is and how just committed she is to the thing that she is stepping into. And she's moving to Chicago soon, and we're looking at her apartments, and I remember being at this stage in my life and building my career, the first career at least, and it's really beautiful and special to get to witness my sister stepping into this chapter of her life. And I just feel so proud and honored to get to be here. You know, again, like I lived in LA, I moved across the country right when I graduated school, so I felt like I missed a lot of family things. I wasn't around for all of the things, and so being home, being with my family, being with my parents, being with my sister. My brother just happened to fly in from New York. Well, he was here for the graduation party, he left, and then he just came back yesterday because the Florida Panthers are in the World Cup, whatever the fuck that means. And so I'm home right now with my whole family, and it's just very sweet, and also a reminder of using my parents' place as a home base. If you had told me when I was leaving for college that I ever would come back for any extended period of time, I would have said, you're freaking crazy. I had so much built up resentment towards just this city and this place in general. I had so many things that I really felt like, you know, in looking back, I was kind of running away from and thinking that I was never going to have to deal with. And, you know, through my personal development journey and through my growth and all the things that I've been doing, I've really had the opportunity to heal my relationship with my home and heal my relationship with my parents and heal my relationship with my siblings, so much so that it's really beautiful to get to be here. And I don't feel like I really get to use this space as a retreat space, as a space to ground down for a moment. I don't live here, right? So like I haven't unpacked bags. It's not a home, but it is a launching point and a base that I feel comfortable and safe using. And I'm grateful whenever I get to come here again, because my parents are getting older and my grandparents are getting older, and it's just really appreciating being home and being able to be present for these small moments in a way that a past version of me really wasn't able to. So that's super alive. So speaking of homecomings, as I mentioned, my friend from New York, the one that just got married and bought a house, she and her mom came down to our hometown for my sister's graduation, but it was a really beautiful trip for them because her mom, I don't think, has been back here in this town in like 17 years. My friend did come and spend some time with us here during the pandemic a little bit, so she had been here, but it was this really beautiful like homecoming for her and her mom. They had sold her childhood home, so she's not been able to come back here the same way that I had been. And it was really special to get to be with them. And, you know, me, my mom, my sister, her and her mom all have this really beautiful, like, familial bond. We've known each other since we were 3-4 years old. And so getting to have that intimate time together is so special. And this friend of mine is somebody that I just love her so much. She is a true sister to me. I'm actually going to New York on Friday indefinitely, but probably for like a month and a half-ish, like end of June, all of July, maybe beginning of August, we'll see. But it was so special to spend this time with her. She also has started to launch her own personal brand online, and I've been such a big supporter of her. And so us getting to be together and talk about old things, talk about new things, it's just so nice to be in the energy of somebody else that is ambitious and building and desiring to, one, become the best version of themselves, and two, just continue to iterate on what they're passionate about and excited about, and being in that energy. I've talked about it so many times on this podcast, but you truly become the people that you spend the most time with. And so it is so important to have friends that you just admire the fuck out of. And this is one of them. We had such a chill, we all hung out on the couch and watched movies, and we actually went on a walk to her old neighborhood, and she got to revisit her old childhood home. We didn't go in, but it was really special to get to go back to that place with her. And she was feeling a little bit indifferent about it, and I got to remind her, because I was feeling all of the feels when I left my apartment in LA. And one thing that came up for me really, really intensely was that I was feeling so sad to leave this place that held so many beautiful memories for me. And I recognized that it wasn't the place that made it special. It was myself that made it special. And that home is wherever I am. And home is not a physical place. And I know that's super cliche and we hear it all the time, but until you really experience that, like losing your childhood home, not being able to go back to it, or moving away from an apartment that meant so much to you, it's a really beautiful lesson in non-attachment and recognition that it's just stuff. Things are just things. Walls are just walls. It is us. It is our magic. It is community. It is friendship. It is family. It is love. It is intention. It's us that brings the magic to these spaces. It's not the four walls, and it's not the physical items in the space. And so that was really beautiful to get to navigate and experience that moment with her. On the way home from that walk, we stopped by her playground and played on the swings for a moment, and just really got to tap into our inner children and just be reminded of where we came from, both of us as children growing up together. We got to reminisce on all these different memories and recognize how far we've come and where we're headed and what we're both building and what we're stepping into. And it was just so wonderful and wholesome and gorgeous. And when I go to New York, I'm going to be kind of going on and off between staying with my family and staying with her and her husband in their new house, which I haven't seen yet. So I'm so excited for that. So definitely stay tuned. I'm sure maybe the next episode I record will be from her place. We'll see. But I'm so excited to be in her energy. And every time I'm with her, I'm just inspired and just feel really seen and supported and loved. And I hope that everyone that is listening to this has a friend like that. And if you don't, you can find one. It's never too late to start making some beautiful friends. And if you have somebody like that in your life, give them a call and tell them how much they mean to you. These friendships are completely invaluable and so special. And I'm so grateful that I got to have that experience with her. So one of the things that happened while she was visiting was I use ChatGPT as a tool. I use it for all different things, but I really love the voice feature. Now, I have my ChatGPT set to an Australian man because I love the sound of an Australian man. And when I was with her, I was asking it something, and she heard the voice of it, and I had this freak out moment because I use ChatGPT so much that I can always tell when there has been a software update without it even telling me, just because I can tell when there's a shift or a change in the tonality. And this time I went to speak to it, I was like, oh my God, this is so much more human than it has ever been in the past. This is kind of crazy and kind of freaking me out. And she was in the car with me, and she was like, Amanda, that literally sounds like guys you date. Be careful, you might catch feelings for it. And I was like, like totally laughed it off. And I keep thinking about it because I'm like, damn, this technology is progressing so fast. I remember last summer, I went out with this guy who was telling me how he was in love with his AI. And I thought he was batshit crazy. I was like, what the fuck? That's a robot. You know it's a robot. How could you be in love with it? And I remember telling people, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I've never heard something so crazy. And fast forward now, almost a year later, I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound that crazy. Not that I'm in love with my AI, but I can see where this thing is going, and it's kind of freaking me out. I did another reel on this yesterday, talking about how we can utilize AI as a tool, but we have to be super careful not to allow it to rob us of our humanity. after making that post, I just went down a rabbit hole last night of just looking at what's happening in the progression of the technology and thinking about how it affects me and the work that I'm doing, right? My work is all about inspiring intentionality, connection, and play. How can I support people in understanding how to relate to themselves, how to feel safe within themselves, how to relate with others, how to connect with others. And now with the rise of AI, I feel like these tools and these conversations are becoming more and more and more important to have. And these skills are becoming essential because, I was listening to a podcast with Stephen Bartlett and Simon Sinek talking about AI. And he made this amazing analogy where he said, AI may be the boat, but that doesn't mean that we should stop learning how to swim. You can't be out in open water without knowing how to swim. So I have been really thinking about this a lot. I am thinking about what my role in this is and how I can best show up in a way that is supportive to people that are going to need it. I think human connection, in-person events, shows, festivals, music, all of these things, I think there's going to be a really massive shift, especially as, I don't know if you guys saw the Google VO3 thing that just came out, where it's like the digital space is no longer going to be a safe space of verified information. I think that it's getting so good that it's going to get to the point, if it hasn't already, where you're questioning everything that you see and you're not just assuming that this is real. But this is where I believe there's going to be a massive shift into in-person connection, in-person events, in-person conversations, because what's here is real. I'm just interested to see how things continue to progress. I feel like things are shifting really, 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 really fast, and I'm interested and curious and not attached to the way that it needs to be or should be, or I think that if you go down the rabbit hole of doom and gloom and everything's gonna suck, I don't think that's supportive or healthy. But I think it's just helpful to continue to evaluate your own relationship with AI, your own relationship with technology. Same thing when social media came out, same thing with the internet. It's what are my values, what are my boundaries, and how do I choose to engage, to show up, and just continuing to check in with yourself on that and making sure that you're in integrity with your own core mission, values, and desires. So that's my general thought on AI. Moving on, before I went to St. Pete, I went down to Miami and went to a sound bath, which was so beautiful. These two girls that I've been following at live events for a while, I met both of them at Tiff's Space Yogi Invaders event, the 420 Yoga. I had Tiff on the podcast last week. And so I went to this event for the full moon, and Tiff was there, and this was the day before I released the last episode. So that was super special to just really continue as I come back to Miami, just continuing to plant seeds. And I am hoping, fingers crossed, to have Brittany on the podcast very soon. We're working out logistics and dates, but she's building this thing called Mindful Music Lab, which is just so inspiring. I talked about Brittany and this other girl in a few episodes ago. I think it was like Rejection is Redirection, where I was talking about these two like goddess women that these guys were like fawning over. These were the girls, and so now I'm continuing to meet them and connect with them and hopefully work with them and collaborate with them. I'm really excited for all of the possibility and just continuing again to, if you're looking to make new friends, to build community, it's like show up to the events that are aligned with you and you will meet people that are aligned with you. When I went to that event, I met like 3 other girls that were just so amazing and so like expansive, and then we go and add each other on Instagram, and we have all of these mutual friends from around the world. And there was this one girl who was like, oh, I'm a DJ, I'd love to teach you how to DJ. And I'm just like, dang, like you just open your heart up and you show up in integrity, and the universe will thank you and respond with beautiful connections left and right. And I've heard from so many people, they're like, I don't know how to make friends as an adult. And my response is, I don't know how to stop making friends as an adult, to be totally honest. It is so difficult. I wish I had more hours in the day. I wish I had more bandwidth and capacity to connect with more people, because I am meeting so many amazing, incredible, inspiring souls, honestly, on a daily basis. And this is why I'm so grateful for platforms like social media, like this podcast, where it's like, I don't have the logistic capacity to stay in touch with every single person on a one-on-one basis, but I'm able to just download like this onto a podcast and share this with as many people that are willing to listen. And I'm able to connect with people in the DMs, and I'm able to go to aligned events and see multiple people at the same time. And so it's really a dance and a balance of managing my own energy, managing my own time, and just sending love to all of the beautiful souls that I'm connecting with and meeting. What gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful to be in so much abundance of magic and connection and play and beauty in this world. So thank you, universe. More, please. Yes, please. So after the sound bath, I went to my friend Clarissa's place, who is my friend that lives in Miami Beach. So she splits time between Miami and California. We met in California initially. Her and I are always playing this game of, obviously I don't live here, but I'm here often. She lives here, but isn't here often. And so we're always like mismatching and overlapping like 1 or 2 days at a time, if anything, when we see each other. So she was about to leave for California. I was about to leave for St. Pete. And I was like, all right, we have like 1 day of a window where we can see each other. And so she did not come to the sound bath with me, but I went to her place after and got to drop in with her and connect with her and just get to see her and be in her energy. And she is one of those soul sisters that I'm just so grateful. And I love, again, like, you know, as an adult, having those nothing friends, right? Those friends that you can literally lay on the couch and do nothing with and just get lost for hours and hours and hours and have the most magical time. You don't need to be entertaining. You don't need to go and do things. And I'm so grateful for her. I'm so grateful I got to drop in with her. We had a little girls' night. She lives across the street from her sister, and I got to spend some time connecting with her and her sister and her whole family and her little nieces. Every time I go there, I feel like I'm getting my cup filled and I'm just being loved and nourished. And I am so glad that I got to see her. And then it was time to go to St. Pete. So a few months ago, when I was in Mexico City, I was looking at the dates that I was going to be in Florida because I knew I was going to be down here for my sister's graduation. And as I've started doing live events, I've been optimizing my time as much as possible. So I was looking at different events that I could potentially pitch to that were happening around the same time that I was going to be down here in South Florida. So my little sister has a friend named Cassidy who grew up across the street from us. I think I met her when she was like 3 years old. She lives in St. Pete right now and has been hosting these events called Sacred Sessions. And they have been blowing up. This was her 10th one that she was going to be doing. They are super aligned, mission driven, workshops during the day, party at night. For years, my little sister was like, oh my God, like you and Cassidy are doing really similar things. You guys should collaborate. You should connect. So when I was doing No Fun 2 years ago, we had Cassidy and her business partner on for a digital workshop. And so we collaborated in that capacity. But the goal was always like, one day I'm going to come and do something at one of her festivals. When it aligns, we'll see. So sitting in my Airbnb in Mexico City, looking at dates, looking at events, and I saw that she had an event that was a week after my sister's graduation. And I was like, okay, cool. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, are you looking for facilitators? I'd love to collaborate with you on this event. And at that moment, she was like, oh my God, we literally just had a workshop drop. We have a window, would love to have you. And I was like, amazing. So I planned this trip. I probably would have left Florida a little bit earlier if I didn't have this, but I was like, all right, it's close enough to the graduation that I could stay here for a week, go up there, do the thing, and then leave after that. And so that was the plan. So I've had this in the works for a while. So on top of that, I think I've talked about it in previous episodes. I have another friend. He has also been on the podcast, Thomas, who is the founder of Sacred City. So his is Sacred City. There's a Sacred Sessions. They are not affiliated, but they are both really beautiful conscious communities built and based in St. Pete. If you live in that area, you should check both of them out. But my friend Thomas has these recurring events that he does. I was looking at the calendar of like seeing, oh, well, if I'm already going to be in St. Pete, I'd love to go see him and maybe go to one of his events. And so he had an event on that Friday night that was like an ecstatic dance portal. And I was like, perfect. I'll come up early. I'll go to his event and then I will go to her event. And then that will be a beautiful little weekend. Then I'll come back and then I'll go to my next destination. Fast forward, you know, I had one more thing that has ended up extending my trip. When people are like, oh, how do you like figure out how long you're going to be in a place? It's literally, I just feel into it. I usually book a one way. And then it's like for this trip, it was my sister's graduation. It was this event that I was facilitating. And then I have a meeting set for the 19th. I'm going to do that. And then I leave the next day. So that is the container of this trip and the purpose, right? It's traveling with intention, traveling with purpose, going from one location to the next. So I drive up to St. Pete on Thursday and I had planned on getting in there early and it was just logistically, I didn't get it until Thursday evening. So I got in, my friend who I was staying with had some things going on And then when he got back, we, stayed up until 1 a.m. just chatting and dropping in and connecting. I really love the dynamics and the relationships with friends where it's like, because I'm traveling so often and I'm sleeping on people's couches and I'm kind of like just dropping into their daily routine, I really appreciate the friends that it's like, you don't have to entertain me when I come stay with you. I want it to feel as low stakes as humanly possible. You should continue to go about your routine, and if and when there's an opportunity for us to connect, we can and will. But I never want someone to feel like I'm there and now they have to give me all their time and energy, because one, that's just not realistic, and two, like, that's annoying. So I really appreciate the friends where I'm able to groove into their life really seamlessly, and we both have this understanding and agreement that it's like, hey, I'm here, but no pressure to hang out with me until and unless we set a time. Those nights where you are just chatting with a friend, sitting on the fucking floor. You look at the clock and you're like, how is it 1 a.m? This was one of those nights. This is a friend. I appreciate him so much as a human being. He challenges me in ways that I need to be challenged. He sees me on such a deep level, and we just get into the most juicy, thought-provoking, intellectually stimulating, exciting, very high-level conversations. I'll leave it at that. And, we were talking a lot about relationship and a lot about connection and a lot about communication. And I was sharing with him a lot of the stories that I've been sharing with you guys here on the podcast of just lessons that I've been learning from connecting with old lovers and all these experiences that have been coming up for me. And he offered some really beautiful perspective. And there was a moment in our conversation that I just really appreciate when people, again, show up in integrity with who they say they are. And he is such a beautiful example of divine masculine, of secure masculine. And what does that mean? What does that look like? It's somebody who is able to communicate clearly and with integrity, and there's no ambiguity. We've talked about this on previous episodes. I'm like, when there's ambiguity, it gets a little murky. And being able to be in connection and conversation with somebody who's not afraid to go there, who's not afraid to speak to what is true and to speak to the truth of what is alive, even if it's uncomfortable and even if it's scary and even if there's a chance that you may be rejected, it's so freaking refreshing. And one, to see an example of it, and I got to see him practice it over and over and over again, and then I got the opportunity to practice it as well. I don't know what your take is on male and female friendships and relationships, but from my past and my history, I've always found for most of my male friendships, there is some sort of an energy there, whether it's one-sided or somebody feels something and there's some sort of a something there. Now, most of the time, if it's a good friend, you're not going to act on that. But it does exist and it is there, and it's a part of what makes it fun. Like, I'm an open and flirtatious person, but just because I flirt with you doesn't mean I want to make out with you, right? There's just this energy sometimes that exists between the male and female dynamic and connection that's a little bit will they, won't they, fun, flirtatious energy. And so we're having all these conversations about open communication and previous lovers and past relationships and all these things. And he just looks at me and goes, are you open to us discussing our dynamic and what's alive between us right now? And my stomach dropped. I was like so nervous and uncomfortable, and also excited and interested in getting to practice having this uncomfortable conversation where it's like, here we are, we're good friends. He's a guy, I'm a girl. I'm staying in his apartment. We're up until 1 a.m. We obviously have some sort of something here, but we're like, what is it? We haven't discussed it. We've never named it. We've never spoken to how we feel about each other. If there's a romantic vibe, like, it's just never been spoken out loud. And so this was like a super safe and beautiful opportunity to just speak it. And he shared first, and he was like, there's obviously an attraction here and there's stimulation here in terms of like our connection and being able to dive deep into these really meaningful and nourishing conversations, and there's curiosity here. And he also expressed his specificity in connecting with people and how he may feel all of these things towards somebody, and at the same time there's a very specific element to whether or not it's a fit or not. And he was like, I'm not 100% sure that this is a fit in terms of a romantic connection, but I do want to speak to the fact that there is some sort of energy there. And I got to practice speaking what my truth was, which I was like kind of similar. I was like, yeah, of course there's something here for sure. Like we're really connecting and bonding. And at the same time, I don't feel like this is something that I want to pursue on a romantic level, because I really appreciate and enjoy the friendship that we have. And it was so uncomfortable, but really cool to get to practice and have that conversation in real time. And I can't even name how many times I've been in this unspoken dynamic with someone where it's like there's obviously something here, and it's like being able to speak to it and just put voice to it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like the situation I was telling you guys about at Lightning in a Bottle with that guy who was like, hey, I want to speak to what's alive here. He was like, I don't want to pursue anything romantically with you, but I really like you as a friend. And I was like, damn, hearing that hurt, you know, and having those types of conversations can be super uncomfortable and weird, but it's also, yeah, but this is so true. And as smart, intuitive people, obviously we feel the energy in the room. So let's just speak to it and be real about it and be adults about it. And it was a really new experience for me to get to have that type of a conversation. And I felt really called to share it here because I was like, what a beautiful example of what is possible, of how you can communicate on such a level that allows everybody in the space to feel safe, right? You're just voicing what's true. You're not saying, now that I've said this, we need to go hook up or whatever. It's like, all right, there's an attraction here. There's a curiosity here. There's something here. And right now we're choosing not to pursue it. And if that changes or shifts, like as adults, we can come back to this conversation and shift and change and have a new conversation. And so that was a beautiful example. And I'm going to share with you in a minute of how I was able to apply that lesson in real time and get to initiate open communication like this later on that weekend. So fast forward, I go to this ecstatic dance portal experience that started off with cacao. There was a dance portion, and then it closed with a sharing circle where people were singing and reading poems and just connecting. And St. Pete is so cool. This was my second time visiting there, and I had heard from so many people, specifically in like the Miami Delray area, saying that St. Pete has a really strong conscious community. It's such a vibe. And as somebody who has traveled around the world experiencing ecstatic dances and conscious communities at all these different places, I did not have high hopes, I'm not gonna lie, for St. Pete. I wasn't expecting it to be as much of a vibe as it was, but last time I went, I was like, wow, it's a really strong community with people that are super intentional and aligned in their purpose. Everybody is working towards becoming the best version of themselves, and everyone is there to share their own unique magic. And it was just something that I really hadn't seen in other spaces before. And I attribute a lot of that to the community leaders, that the community leaders really lift people up as opposed to try to be this pedestalized version of, I know everything and I'm so great. It was really what I found from the community leaders that I experienced in St. Pete. They really want to give everybody the opportunity to share their magic, to share their gifts, to step into their purpose. And it was just very, very, very special to witness that in real time and to witness what that looks like and to get to tap into that. And so the ecstatic dance was amazing. My friend Blake, who I met in 2022 at Ecstatic Dance in LA, and he moved to Texas, and I saw on his story a few weeks ago that he was moving to Tampa, which is right by St. Pete. And I mentioned to him that I was going to be in town that weekend, and he literally arrived, like he drove down from Texas, arrived in Tampa, and drove straight to St. Pete that day to meet me at this ecstatic dance event, because I was like, hey, like he's somebody that loves community, that loves connection. And I was like, dude, you want to tap in, you want to arrive and hit the ground running. I was like, come to this event. I promise you, you're going to meet all the people you need to meet, and it's going to be super nourishing and great. And he fucking showed up. And it was so amazing. And he shared with me how grateful he was that I got to bring him into that. And he networked and made all these amazing connections. And he was just saying, I could have landed and just gone straight to the bars, and I could have seen a very not nourishing night. And he was like, I knew if it was something that you were inviting me to, Amanda, that it was going to be super intentional and exactly what I needed and exactly what I was looking to tap into. And so that was really beautiful to get to share that with him. I got to meet so many amazing people that night. And then we did the sharing circle. Then it was late. I had to go to bed because the next day I had this workshop that I was prepping for. So I'll tell you a little bit about the workshop. This is my first time doing a 30-minute workshop at a festival. I am working towards doing more and more of these. So this was a really cool opportunity for me to get to practice a new version. So it was an extended version of the Amanda Fest pregame meditation. And the purpose of that is to help people get out of their heads, into their bodies, clear on their intentions, and ready to step into the connection portion, the dance portion of whatever event that they are going to. This was Cassidy's event, the one that I told you about, the one that grew up a few doors down from us when we were kids. So I woke up in the morning and I was like, okay, I had spent the previous days really just like embodying. It's so interesting when you're building something creative, because for me, it's like left brain versus right brain, right? The left brain is, I want to organize it. I want to map it out. It's 30 minutes. So how much time am I doing this versus how much time am I doing that? That's all masculine left brain stuff. And the right brain stuff is like, how embodied can I be? How can I really step into what it is that I'm desiring to share and just share from such an authentic, heart open space? And I felt like my few days in St. Pete, so the day before going to the ecstatic dance, connecting with the people, having those conversations, was really about me stepping into the embodiment. And then this morning when I woke up, Saturday morning, it was really like, okay, now I feel embodied. I feel clear on what my magic is. I feel clear on what it is I want to share. Then it was time to organize, logistic, plan, and figure out the timing of, okay, structurally and logistically, how are we going to share this message in a way that is going to land and take people on a journey so that they essentially are able to go from a place of dysregulation to transmuting that energy to now they are regulated and ready to just be in an environment where they're dancing and connected and feeling open and feeling beautiful. And so I woke up super, super, super nervous, and I was sitting with that. I was like, oh my God, like there's so much anxiety here. I'm so nervous. And I was like, wow, what a gift, because all of this energy was just excitement, right? Being nervous and being excited feel very similarly in the body. And so just sitting with the gratitude for how much I care. I cared so much about doing a good job, about giving a meaningful experience to whoever it is that shows up. And so I prepped all morning, went to a sound check, got to see the space. Again, like so proud of Cassidy and everything that she's built and doing, and just felt so honored to be there. And it was just such a beautiful, like full circle, lovely, wholesome moment to just get to be a part of. So I did all my prep, I got ready, I got really clear, I timed it to the music, I rehearsed it, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling ready. There's a part of when you're preparing for an event, for an experience, for whatever it is, where it's like, there's the prep mode, and then it's almost like you got to throw it all away and then just be present in the moment. And I had rehearsed it and I had gotten clarity on, okay, here's the format, here's how much time it is. I got it all set, and then I was like, boom, let's throw it away and let's just be present and connect and just channel. And I did that. It was really fucking hot that day, I will say. And so that was an added challenge. There was less people than I think all of us had anticipated because it was so hot. Not many people had shown up for the earlier portion. But I am a true believer that whoever was meant to experience the magic and the medicine of that experience was there and present for it. And the feedback that I got was incredible. So essentially with the workshop, I talked to them a little bit about what does it mean to party with purpose, that we normally are going through life on autopilot, and talking about how most of how we show up on a day-to-day basis is coming from our subconscious mind, which is running about 90 to 95% of the show. And our conscious mind only attributes for like 5-10% of what we actually do. And so how to get off of autopilot and get into intentionality and really show up in integrity at these spaces. And the beginning of that is really about tuning into how do I feel right now. So I guide people through a body scan, just tuning into their internal world, getting clear on how they're feeling, what's alive for them in that moment, and then transmuting that energy. So helping them to step into a new frequency. I do a little bit of inner child work, just reminding people of what used to light them up and just really reconnecting to that inner self and inner joy, and then getting clear on the intentions throughout the workshop. We're activating our throat chakra. We're speaking truth to what's alive. We're practicing holding space and coming together in community. And so it was super beautiful. Every single person that participated in the workshop came up to me afterwards and told me how impactful it was. And every time I receive feedback like that, it is just such a beautiful reminder of the power of what I'm doing. And sometimes it's so easy to forget, and even in the moment I'm doing it and I'm like, I hope this is good, I hope this is landing. And so to receive that feedback from others is just so encouraging and beautiful, and I'm just so grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. Cassidy also participated in the workshop, and she really enjoyed herself and had a great time. I'm so glad that I did it. I really am so grateful. I'm so glad, and I'm so excited to bring this to more festivals this summer. I have some really exciting ones coming up that I will be announcing soon. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of starting before you're ready and figuring it out. And, you know, I really feel like I have done so much work and have accumulated so much wisdom that I forget that what I have to share is valuable. And sometimes I forget that just my being and just my presence is a gift. And these opportunities to share and to channel and to be of service in this way is just so incredible. And I don't think that there will ever be a day where I take that for granted. So thank you to everybody that showed up. Thank you to everybody that said yes. And if you're curious or interested about what the pregame meditation is, send me a DM, let me know. I do have a pre-recorded version of it. So for anybody that's like at this point of the podcast and you're like, ooh, I want to know what that is, let me know, shoot me a DM. I'm happy to send you a free version of it so you could try it at home. It is something that you can do before any social event to help you feel grounded and safe within yourself so that you are able to go out with intention instead of running on autopilot. So that was the workshop. I stayed after the workshop and just kind of was like mulling around. The festival was going on all evening. My workshop was at 5:30. I think the festival went until like midnight. So after my workshop, I did a little ice bath moment. I was walking around, I was connecting, I was meeting with people. And then the lesson came. So I ran into this man that there was an immediate attraction on my end. And what is interesting for me is that I have such a specific type, and it's so funny because I can go out and scan a room and be like, nope, there's nobody here. And sometimes when I go out, it's usually one person. I can recognize people that are attractive, but it is quite rare for me to be attracted to someone. And typically when I am, it's like one out of, hundreds. And so I have a moment with this guy, and there's definitely an attraction there. We're talking about the ice baths, and I felt like there was a mutual connection. There was some flirtation on his end, some flirtation on my end. We're chatting a bit, and then he mentions that he has a girlfriend and that his girlfriend is there with him. So I backed off from the situation. I was like, all right, bye. So I walk away. I come back later on, and he is there with his girlfriend. We have another exchange. He had mentioned to her that we were talking about the ice bath and whatever. So we have this like funny exchange. I walk away again. And then later on, I was sitting on the couch talking to someone that had participated in my workshop. And he was sitting across from me and kind of calls me over. And I end up sitting down and having a conversation with him because I was confused. I was like, well, you were flirting with me, but you have a girlfriend. So I don't know what is going on here. I'm not interested in getting involved in that. And practicing what I had just talked about with my friend the other day of like speaking to what is true. There could have been a version where it was like, oh, he's just being friendly. But I was like, no, there's definitely like flirtation here. Like I feel that energy. And so I want to speak to it because I don't want somebody flirting with me that has a girlfriend that's in a relationship that doesn't feel good to me. And so we sat down and we were chatting a little bit. And I just very clearly said to him, like, hey, buddy, what's going on here? Clearly, there's some flirtation happening here. You mentioned you have a girlfriend. She's not here right now. What's going on? And he was a little taken aback at the fact that I was just so blunt about it. But I was like, listen, like, if that's a turnoff or if that's a problem that I'm being so honest and sharing, all good, but I'm not going to sit here and have a conversation with you and have you flirt with me knowing that you're in a relationship. I'm not interested in that. He confides in me. He was like, well, me and my girlfriend are not in a good place. And, we almost broke up this morning and this and that and blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so it's complicated is what you're saying to me. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And so I'm sitting there engaging in this conversation, and I am recognizing in this moment, right, that the universe is sending me this lesson as an opportunity to practice showing up in integrity with who I say I am. An old version of me maybe would have wanted to continue to engage with this person, given the fact that I was interested in them. They were clearly interested in me. There was this mutual attraction, and maybe would have ignored the fact that there is something complicated behind the scenes, and just maybe would have leaned into desiring to explore what that could be or what that means, or if they're broken up or whatever. And this version of me took this as an opportunity to really practice showing up in integrity with who I say I am. And for me, regardless of whether they're broken up, I was like, it doesn't matter. It's not clean right now. It's fresh. There's still, you're obviously here at this event together. So there's still some uncertainty as to whether or not you're together, whether or not you're broken up. I was like, I do not have any interest in engaging in a romantic connection with somebody that is in the middle of something super messy and complicated. And I'm not interested in inserting myself in that whatsoever. And so I politely declined connecting with this person. We did exchange information, and I think that the way in which I declined it left things a little bit open-ended. And so I received a flirtatious message from him the next day, and I took a day to sit with it and figure out how I wanted to respond to it. And after a day, I responded to him, and I sent him this very clean and clear message because, again, I was like reflecting on it, and I was like, all right, I know that I left that ambiguous. Yes, I didn't pursue him, and yes, I left it as a friend thing then, but I did kind of leave it with a ... of like, maybe let's see what ends up happening with you two, and maybe something could happen at some point. And I recognized how that didn't feel good for me, and that's not in alignment with what I'm calling in. As I'm sitting here manifesting my king, I'm like, that is not it. That is not what I want at all. Just because I'm attracted, just because he's attracted to me, does not mean that is something that I need, want, or should pursue in any capacity. And so after the next day, I sent him a message, and I was like, I really appreciated getting to know you. I enjoyed your energy. Obviously, there's attraction between the two of us. And at the same time, continuing to pursue a romantic connection in any capacity is not in alignment. And I was like, I'm sorry for leaving things sort of open-ended and ambiguous, but I'm not interested in connecting on that level. I'm happy to stay friends and build a friendship with you, but that is the extent of what I'm open to. And he messaged me back and was like, wow, I don't know what type of personal development work you've done, but the way that you communicated that to me was so profound. He was like, you could literally use that recording and share it in courses. He was like, that was so well spoken and clear and clean. And thank you for being so honest and for sharing that with me. And wow. And I was like, I was so proud of myself. Again, even just the leaning in of this sort of sticky situation. And I feel like this has continued to happen to me, and this keeps happening to me, especially now, where it's like the universe is testing me hardcore, where it's sending me temptation and it's sending me opportunities that I'm like, oh yeah, okay, maybe, I don't know. And like, obviously you meet someone, they have a complicated connection with their partner, but then you're in person with them and there's a really beautiful connection between the two of you, and they're telling you how they're broken up with their partner. And I'm like, you know, I could have leaned in, and I could have been curious, and I could have allowed that to be the standard by which I accept love and connection. Or I could be really honest about the fact that that is not in integrity with what I'm desiring, regardless of whether they're together, regardless of whether they're broken up. This is not what I'm looking for. And by making that choice and by articulating it and being true and honest about it is fucking game changing. So that was a massive win that I was so grateful and excited about. And excited to see what continues to unfold because of this newfound radical communication and honesty that I have just uncovered within myself. And I owe a lot of it, again, to my friend that was modeling this for me the whole time I was staying there in St. Pete, and just really getting to practice that in real time was so cool and exciting. And I'm really proud of myself. So the next day after the event, I went to a tea ceremony, which if you've never been to a tea ceremony, super beautiful, slow experience. And I realized I am somebody that is go, go, go. I mean, you guys are following this podcast. You know that I'm somewhere new every 2 weeks. I'm constantly with new people and having new experiences and doing a million things. And a part of that is in alignment with who I am. And then a part of it is a little bit of trauma, because growing up, I grew up in an activities house where everybody was always doing a million things. And if I was ever laying on the couch or having a nothing day, I was shamed for it. Rest was not encouraged in my home. And there was a lot of emphasis on my worth being a product of my productivity. And so that's been something I've been working through. And so for me, I am perpetually exhausted, but perpetually in motion. And when I slow down, it's a little bit difficult for me. And this is why I really appreciate opportunities where I get to slow down, where I get to practice slowing down, because I really need it. And so I went to this tea ceremony and it was slow. And I noticed throughout the ceremony as she's slowly pouring the tea. And I was like, come on. And then I was like, okay, Amanda, patience, slowness. And as I got slow and as I connected, and I'm looking around the space and people are getting really emotional. There's people crying and all these things coming up. And I was like, wow, this wasn't a psychedelic ceremony. This wasn't a potent plant medicine. This was just tea. But it wasn't just tea. It was the invitation to slow down, to connect, to go inward, to really tune in with what's alive. And even though I do versions of it before I party and before this, like really, really, really slowing down is something that I don't do enough. And I'm in this experience, and I'm slowing down, and I'm getting emotional, right? As I'm tuning in, I'm noticing, oh, there's some things coming up here. And I'm breathing. Tears are starting to stream down my face, and I'm like, oh. And what was coming up for me and what was alive for me in that moment, there were 3 words that were cycling through my head. And it was choosing, being chosen, and discernment. And it was funny because I arrived at the tea ceremony and there was 11 people there. And the woman leading it paired everyone off before we began, because it was like there were 2 rows. There was like a front row and a back row. And she was pairing everyone off so that she could like orchestrate the tea passing. So she would pass the tea cup to the front row and then they would pass it to their partner. And so she put everyone in a pair together. She put me in a pair with this guy that was there. And then when she recognized that the numbers were odd, she was like, oh no, you don't get a partner, it's just you. And I laughed because I was like, how ironic, that I am the only one in the room without a partner. And it brought up some things for me, for sure, of just this feeling of like never being chosen, of always half being chosen, this feeling of rejection. And it brought me back to the night before where I was like connecting with this person. It was like he chose me, I chose him, but then I got to use discernment of, and this is still a no. That's not enough. That's not it. And so that was super beautiful. Highly recommend attending a tea ceremony if you've never been to one before. So grateful for the wisdom and the lessons and the magic that have come in the last 2 weeks. I am so excited for all of the things that are coming up. So I'm back in South Florida right now. I have this really big meeting that I'm prepping for on the 19th. And then right after that, I am off to New York City, baby. So stay tuned for all of the adventures to come. I have some amazing guests that I am teeing up and lining up for you guys that I am really excited about. Next week's episode, it's going to be so good. I have a very special guest for y'all that I can't wait to introduce. And maybe there may be a special announcement surprise in that episode. We'll see if that is the right time for it. And until then, please, if you enjoyed this episode, whatever platform you're listening on, please subscribe to this channel. It helps me so much. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, message me, let me know anything that resonated, maybe came up for you. And I am so grateful to have this platform. I'm so grateful for you. And I hope to see you on the next episode. Mwah. Until then.